At the start of 1991, Vince McMahon had grand plans to take the show of shows, the granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania, to the biggest arena, the biggest stadium, the biggest goddamn venue that he could possibly take WrestleMania. But then those plans went absolutely tits up right around the time that the Royal Rumble ended. You know why? Because Vince McMahon really didn't think that many people were going to have problems with Sergeant Slaughter turning heel and then the whole Iraqi war thing. And yeah, it didn't work out. It wasn't good shit, pal. So he had to move it to the LA Sports Arena. Arguably, that was a better crowd than they would have in a huge 100,000 seat outdoor stadium. Even if they had 60, 70,000 people, the sound was all-encompassing. Even if WrestleMania 7 was a bit doji and a bit dodgy and a bit all-around to the point where you look at some of that card and you think, my God, I remember those people, and wow, they really died very soon after this particular card. Not mentioning any Dino Bravos or Kerry Von Erichs who faced off against each other at WrestleMania 7. But the whole point is, in 1991, they were steamrolling towards the show with a stop at the city that this particular event took place in. So, here we go. I'm John Rentham with a retro view of WWE in London, Ontario, Canada. It's actually WWE in London, Ontario, and it took place on February 16th, 1991. And after reviewing the Battle Royal and Royal Prince Albert Hall event that they put up that took place at the end of, or near the end of 1991, let's look and see what state the company was in at this point. I will say the crowd was actually pretty lively, but man, oh man, talk about a time capsule event. Speaking of time capsule events, the more that the WWE Vault channel has of these particular things, actual events, not just compilation tapes, I will be doing more shit like that. So anyway, the Barbarian against Koko B. Ware. You know, Kevin Nash might have thought the B stood for Bojangles. If you get it, you get it. Boy, oh boy. Kevin Nash shouldn't have said that about Javon Evans. He really shouldn't have. My God. Yeah, I'm kind of dating the review here just in case you're wondering when I'm recording this. But boy, oh boy. By the way, Sean Mooney and Lord Alfred Hayes were on commentary, and the commentary was so badly ADR'd and piped in that you could barely hear it. Then again, Lord Alfred Hayes was always terrible on commentary. Promotional consideration paid for by the swallowing. So, bit of a mismatch here. Not with the swallowing, but also Lord Alfred Hayes on commentary. Lord Alfred Hayes, who was not that good of a guy. Roddy Piper had something to say about him. Anyway, the Barbarian and Koko B. Ware. Yeah, Barbarian was a beast. And Koko did take some hard bumps. Actually, way harder than he probably needed to at a show like this. The crowd was good. There was lots of stalling. Not as much stalling as we would get in other matches a little bit later on. In fact, the next one, oh boy. There was a nerve hold for 90 seconds that felt like it took place for 9 minutes. There was a weird bulldog variation thing that Koko tried to do. I don't know what they were trying to go for. But he did hit a nice drop kick where he practically landed on his feet because Koko was an amazing athlete. I don't think he wrestles anymore because I remember the last time I saw him, I believe he was on the Junkyard Dog Dark Side. He started to resemble Mr. Hughes, late era of Mr. Hughes. Anyway, a stun gun variation, 1, 2, 3. Not an actual stun gun like the Mountie or like they used to zap him with a taser, a.k.a. Bill Goldberg. But no, an actual thing where it's like, you know how Steve Austin used to hit the finish. You know, leg dive, boom, right on the ropes. And then Demolition Crush against Bushwhacker Butch in a singles match. On purpose. This crowd hated Bushwhacker Butch. I don't know if they wanted Luke and Butch. I don't know if they hated the Bushwhacker gimmick. But boy, oh boy. Bryan Adams was never very good. I mean, Summer 69 and Run to You was actually, no, in all seriousness. Bryan Adams had the look. But, yeah, he was variations of crutch. He was a crutch on the goddamn roster, but no, he was variations of Crush. And then he went to be part of Chronic. And it just didn't work. He just never did. I mean, I know he died. I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead, but he wasn't that good. Yeah, the crowd hated this. I think they only popped when it was over. There was a count-out win for Butch in, like, close to 10 minutes, and I think 8 minutes of that was stalling. Because Butch didn't know what to do. I mean, and mind you, coming off just a few years before, Luke and Butch being the sheep herders. Yes, they were fully into being in Vince McMahon's cartoon land, but good Lord. He won in 10 minutes, and my God, that thing felt like it took a year. Ted DiBiase versus renowned murderer Jimmy Snuka, who brought out Virgil. Renowned murderer Jimmy Snuka, who loved to dodge taxes and dodge payments like he dodged paying Nancy Argentino's family. And Ted DiBiase knows how to dodge taxes and stiff people out of money. Allegedly, reportedly, probably. Virgil was in his corner, as I said, in Snuka's corner, because he just had recently turned on Ted DiBiase at the Rumble, which actually pretty much the biggest pop Virgil ever got. So Ted had to carry this. Virgil trips up Ted DiBiase, and Snuka covers for 3. Now, Snuka was in great shape at this point, at least as far as, outwardly, but boy, you could tell he was washed. And Virgil attacks briefly. And then Jim Duggan took on General Adnan. Not Sheik Adnan El Casey. We're not in the AWA, because the AWA was pretty much done. Well, they were pretty much done by late 90, but they ran a few house shows a little bit after this. Ferngani tried to revive the AWA. Why? I don't know. 3-point stance won this match after Adnan tried to choke out Duggan with his flag. Rick Martel then cuts a promo. Rick Martel, by the way, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I believe he's from Montreal. He's at least some kind of French Canadian. Not that you could tell with the accent. The accent's so diminished. You can totally fucking tell. Nothing against French Canadians. You're all cool people, but yeah, Rick Martel. He could never overcome that accent. That being said, he talked about the fans being jealous of him. I guess he helped write the Jim Blossom song, If You Get It, You Get It. Rick Martel against Jake the Snake, a.k.a. Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake wanted revenge after the arrogance in the eyes. This actually was kind of a cool time capsule as far as seeing how they worked these, worked the feud on the house show circuit. Rick was a great heel. And the funniest thing is, if you take a look at him as part of Strikeforce, if you take a look at him before that as the AWA champion, if you just think, Rick Martel is really, really fucking underappreciated. Very underappreciated. And he was a great heel, though. Yes, I am a model. He had to have that giant pin. That pin, that was so unwieldy. It was so funny, though. It was so funny. Anyway, loud DDT chants. Rick took over with dirty tactics and sleeper holds and chin locks and that kind of stuff. But he targeted the throat. You always want to go after a man's throat and make sure he can't, swallow anything. So he chokes on whatever you put down there. I won't speak any further. But he tried for arrogance, a DDT, and Rick was there, on the ground, face up for about 45 seconds. And 1, 2, 3. And then Rick tried, he got away from Jake Snake. And then The Undertaker took on Tugboat. I mean, Fred Ottman's career was dead on arrival, or DOA once he became the Shockmaster. Yes, I know, he was back as Typhoon for a little bit, but name anything else that he did besides appear as Tugboat at the WrestleMania 17 Battle Royal. Remember anything else? Can you? I can't. So that being said, yeah, not good. Undertaker blindsided him. Paul Bearer laughed at ringside. Tugboat bumped around like crazy. Actually bumped very well for a guy that size. A lot of people forget how good Fred Hoffman was. And a bad step spot where Taker clearly got his hands down and his head was about 8 years away from the goddamn thing. And then a slam, a corner splash. But then he missed the second one, Tugboat did. And Undertaker hit more of a falling elbow than a sky elbow. 1, 2, 3. There we are. Virgil then took on the Brooklyn Brawler because we are just fully into not giving a fuck at this point. We need to give people a chance to get popcorn and stuff and stretch their legs. Brooklyn Brawler was a fine worker. It was a gimmick, but it's memorable. Virgil, bless him. He was over for a bit. So were the syphilis rates. I'm sorry. Again, ill to dead. But Virgil won with a power slam variation. It wasn't awful, but yeah, this was a straight up just cool down match. And then we had the Hart Foundation, Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Did Jim Neidhart know they were in Canada? Did Jim Neidhart know what planet he was on at this point? Bless Jim Neidhart, but good Lord. Power and Glory, a.k.a. Hercules, Hercules at this point, he had personal issues, he got too bloated. If you take a look at how he was even in 88, 89, and you take a look at him here, it is night and fucking day. But Glory was Paul Roma, who was very good in tag teams. And yeah, the whole thing of Super Brawl 5 ends up negating a lot of stuff that he did. He's not the only person that did that to Alex, right? Jim Duggan, at, what was it, Fall Brawl 99, I think? The whole point is that Paul Roma was a fine worker. No, he didn't fit in with the Horsemen. Stylistically, he did. Personality-wise, he didn't. Roma had a great look, and Roma was a very accomplished athlete. And you could see some of the shit that he did. You could see that he had that fire. He had that glorious mullet. Brett got a big pop. Brett was so good. I always note how good, great, excellence of execution Brett was and always will be. Anvil was amped up here, hopefully naturally. Brett took the beating because we weren't going to trust Jim to sell for about 5 years. Set up for the hot tag. They popped when he got tagged. And Roma stopped the heart attack, the finisher, that is. And then we get a brawl outside and a double countout. No, really, we got a double countout. They're protecting Power and Glory, who, by the way, would get squashed by LOD like in a minute at WrestleMania 7. So then we get Sergeant Slaughter, the WWF champion. Yes, it was WWF at the time. With with Sensational Sherri. Was Randy Savage off that day? Because with Sherri, now I get it. It was a collaborative effort to get the title off of the Ultimate Warrior. Still weird Sherri being in Slaughter's corner. So this can't go long, and it went way longer than it had any right to. And look, I've said what I've said about the Ultimate Warrior. Yes, he was a draw. Yes, Vince got him over by putting him over a whole bunch of people, and he did have that crazy look to him, and he did have that thing that appealed to kids. But look at him by the time we got to about, this point in 1991. Yeah, he got a good reaction as champion at the Royal Rumble. And I'm not saying they didn't react to him, but one, he almost ran over a cameraman or a stagehand. And Slaughter had to bounce like a Super Ball. Or Super Ball, that is. And Sherri had to fucking kill time. There was a post spot, the usual offense. Yes, we got another toss up the top. Slaughter could bump around, but Slaughter also was on the tail end of his career. He would be, I believe he would compete, for that AWF, if I recall correctly. He would compete for a few more years, but I want to say by 95, 96, he was pretty much done full time. Because he would become the on-screen commissioner. He'd face Triple H in December 97, the boot camp match, I believe. He would suit up occasionally and did even into the days where Jack fucking Swagger faced off against him. But yeah, Slaughter at this point, no. I mean, he could only do so much. Slaughter did the corner to corner, where he fell, he went up and over the top rope in the corner. Very good move. Don't know what he did on the house show, of all people, for Ultimate Warrior. But then Ultimate Warrior got frustrated and grabbed the championship because of interference in Sherri and that kind of stuff, and used the championship outside on Slaughter. No DQ called. But then he shoved the ref. And then he clotheslined him, and that caught a DQ. And then he shoved the second ref. You Nimrod, what the fuck? And then Agent showed up. Patterson got shoved down. You know why? It's because querying didn't make the world work, according to Ultimate Warrior. Sherri got lifted and press slammed, and I'm sorry. Sherri is tougher than pretty much most of the guys, and I will go with this era. I will go with other eras. But yeah, he didn't drop him quite as bad as Heenan. But boy, oh boy. That being said, that is WWE in London, Ontario, covered in just about 15 minutes. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rentlund. Until we revisit the WWE or WCW vaults again, happy trails to you.